Hello and welcome to Lecture 7 or Unit 7 of the series of lectures in the Supply Chain Risk Management course. In the previous units, we have attempted to look at what risk in today's business environment looks like. We have looked at how to understand why these risks are described as risk. We have looked at analyzing this risk in terms of their likelihood of occurrence and their consequence. We have also looked at how to mitigate, how to manage the risk and mitigate it. In this unit, we are going to look at creating a resilient supply chain. But before we go to that, let me go back to risk mitigation strategies. You'll find that generally, after you have identified risk and you have attempted to analyze it, you have to create a response for it. And the response you will create can fall under any of the strategies that we are going to talk about. You will see that some risks are such that they are low and therefore we accept them. When you accept a given risk, then you are saying that this risk exists, but its likelihood, if you look at the risk matrix, we have likelihood here, likelihood or probability, then we have consequence. This is low, that is high. This is low and that is high. It means that, you remember we discussed this under risk management in project management. Now, when you have a risk event here, then it means it is both low on consequence and low on likelihood. It means the probability of its occurrence is very low, and at the same time, the consequence when it occurs is also low. So for this one, you pay very little attention to it. In terms of risk management, supply chain risk management, these are the class of risk that we pay little attention to. So one good strategy for you to deal with this is to accept it, to acknowledge that those risks exist, except that you also know that should they even occur, their impact is very low, and even their chance of occurring is also very low. So you accept. Then even though we talk about mitigation strategy, you can also mitigate. You can mitigate risk. And to mitigate risk, you are looking for ways and means of what? Reducing the impact or reducing the chance of occurrence. So it is important that when you mitigate, for example, you have a warehouse. There are wires loose everywhere. You know that can cause fire. One mitigation strategy is for you to get an electrician to neatly tack away all these wires to reduce the chance of these wires being able to spark a fire. That is mitigation. you are going to travel. Everybody knows that traveling with a car or a bus, a truck, has the chance of running into an accident. But then you check the tires. You make sure the tires are in good shape. You went and checked the oil levels, the water levels. Everything is intact. This kind of checks, this kind of things means you are mitigating. You are putting in place activities, or you are taking actions that have the potential of reducing the chance of the risk event occurring. And you will find that in many cases, when we have a risk event that is here, it means its consequence is high, its likelihood is low. But when impact is high, it means we must do something about it. So you will find that for this one, we can mitigate. For those that will be here, we can mitigate also. You will find that the likelihood is high, but when it occurs, the consequence is low. We can classify this as medium level risk. Some attention being paid to them is good. But when a risk event is here, then it means it is high in likelihood and then also high impact. For this one, you want to take further, you can transfer. To transfer the risk is to offload the burden of the burden of payment of damages. So you are offloading the impact to somebody. Transferring a risk is like taking the liability for the risk to another entity or another company. This is where insurance people come in. And you will find that anytime you bought insurance for anything, you are transferring the liability for the risk to the insurance company. That is their expertise. So when I buy comprehensive insurance for my car, I am transferring the consequence of a potential accident to the insurance company. When I buy a fire policy, a life policy, flooding policy, whatever policy you buy, it is not that you are saying that you have bought insurance, therefore the risk event will not occur. It will, or it could. But what you have done is to transfer the liability of the consequence so that somebody helps you to bear it. So when you have risk events in the first quadrant where you have consequence is high, likelihood is high, one of the strategies that you can deal with that is to transfer, like buying insurance. Then you can also share. You can share the liability so that you bring partners in. So this one, insurance can be here, e.g. insurance. Here, partnership. So you bring in partners. If you are the only one owning everything and there's a risk event and you lose everything, you suffer 100% of the effects. However, if you are two, everybody, and you have equal share, everybody takes 50%. If you are three, everybody takes 33.3 in that order. So as you bring in partners, you are sharing the liability of a risk event, so that should the risk event occur, you have other people who will shoulder part of the responsibility. That is why many people have been averse to giving birth to one person, because when anything happens to that one person, then it means you have lost. Now you have to be relying on other people's children to move around. And you know, by our nature and the way God has created us, many times we become weak as we age. So a time comes when you need somebody with you to help you do some of the things that you were able to do yourself. And that is why sometimes you find that most of the in the West, where people like giving birth to one, you find that when they age, they become very miserable people. And then they are looking for old people's home, community centers to go and while away time. Because they have nobody to even ask them how they are feeling. So, sharing is good. When you have 2 children, they share the burden. When they are 3, they are 4. It's just like partnership. Then, you can use contingency. Contingency is setting aside some funds or some resources to take care of risk events when they occur. And in project management, we are able to see that this contingency is 2. We have task contingency and we have managerial contingency. In supply chain risk management, we are not too particular about task contingency. Task contingency is for projects. So our concentration here is managerial contingency. What is management putting in place to assist in dealing with a particular risk event? It can be for example, in a warehouse, they buy insurance. But for production or for meeting demand, the warehouse is the contingency. So we keep stock in there so that during times of low demand, we stock. During times of high demand, we deplete the stock. That is a particular kind of contingency. Contingency is not just money. Contingency can include anything that you have deliberately put in place to make sure that when the risk event occurs, you are prepared to deal with it. Then, we also have mentoring. In order that you don't even allow the risk event to occur, mentorship is one very proactive measure where you allow people who are new to a particular field of endeavor to understudy those who have experience in it. So that you have new workers, they work with your old workers to come up to speed with the way you do your things before you leave them on their own. You also have fresh companies understudying others. KNUST as a university is mentoring close to 106 other universities, including universities in Gambia, in Sierra Leone, and in Cameroon. The whole idea is that these are universities that have found that KNUST have already gone down the lane that they are intending to go. They want to follow the path that KNUST has passed to reach where it is today. So they come and negotiate for mentorship. The whole idea is that some senior people from here will pay close attention to what is being done in these universities. That was how come I was sent to Cameroon, because my department was involved. So that is mentorship. And the aim of mentorship is to reduce likelihood of the risk occurring, because you are following experts, and the idea is that these experts will help you avoid making mistakes. That is why people often say that if you follow the path of parents who are righteous people, you hardly go astray. You and I know it's not all parents who are good people. But if you follow the path of righteous parents or righteous people, you can hardly make a mistake. That is the rationale. It is pure mentorship. And then you can also use cross-functional teams. My in-laws, the Ashantis, say that the knowledge is not found in one person's head. So when you put together a cross-functional team, cross-functional teams means people with different expertise. So if it is an organization and you are going to put together, say, a supply chain risk management committee, then you bring in some accountants, some marketers, some procurement people, some stores people, or some logistics people, and so on. At the end of the day, when there is a discussion of what potential risk is, the person who is from finance is able to tell you the angle of finance, the kind of risk that we can run into. So we are able to deal with financial risks. The person from administration can tell us about rules and regulations, so we don't run into that landmine. Procurement person will tell us about the rules of procurement, so that we don't run into a landmine. You see that everybody brings in their own expertise. And that helps us to reduce the potential of even running into the risk in the first place. So this is very important. What you should note at this point is that there is no silver proof. None of these methods is silver proof. There is none that when you take, you can say, as for this one, it is capable of dealing with all my risks. No. It is a combination of them. Don't think that because you have bought insurance, you should drive carelessly. If you drive carelessly, you may not even be alive to take the insurance bonus or the insurance payment. The fact that you have partners doesn't mean you should be careless. Just because you know that when there's a risk, that you are not the only one who will bear it. Don't forget that the part that you have to bear may consume everything you own. So, bottom line is that it is a combination of these risk mitigation strategies that can allow you to deal with any risk that you face. Now, we also said that as part of managing your risk, you can look at in unit 6, we ended up at the tail end where I gave the assignment for you to do a network flow of our paint company, assuming we could get paint from all over the country and from everywhere. I just want to remind you that we did say that you can use the transport problem to reduce your risk. We did that under transportation, but let me just refresh your mind on it. You know you are in Ghana, or maybe you are even in Greater Accra. You are located, I don't know Greater Accra very well, so maybe I should use Kumasi. Maybe you are in Kumasi, and then you supply things to Tafo. You supply things to Atonsu, Dabai, Ejusu. This is even Konongo. No. Let's just say Kentin Krono. You are at Abu Abu. Now, the question is, you want to supply to Dabai, but at the same time, Kentin Krono also needs the product, and Tafo needs the product. How can you do it in such a way that you reduce your cost? Are you going to let one truck fly through all this? What will be the distance and what will be the cost? Then, if on the other hand, you let one truck do Tafo and Dabai and another truck does Kentin Krono and Atonsu, what will be the cost? That will be dealt with by the transportation problem. And you know that under the transportation problem, we have the Northwest Corner Rule, the least cost method, the Vogels approximation method, and then you check for improvement using the stepping stone and then the modified distribution. Then we also have transshipment, where I am at Abu, or let's say I take Ghana, Accra, Takoradi, Kumasi, Sunyani, Tamale, Wa, and Boga. Now, is it possible that I can get all my products from Accra and Takoradi to supply my depot in Kumasi, so that my depot in Kumasi will be responsible for meeting the demand of Wa, because from Sunyani to Wa is short. So when I do this, then I have a transshipment. This is transshipment. Or I can do assignments where I have a dedicated truck that will move from Accra to Boga straight. Or one truck move from Accra to Kumasi and then it has reached its destination. one track moves from Accra to Takoradi. So where I have from Accra to Bolga, one track. Another track moves from Accra to Kumasi. A track moves to Takoradi through Cape Coast. One track. If I do it like this, then I am doing assignments. So all this can help you manage your risk. Remember, we did indicate that part of managing risk is for you to segment the activities and then do a detailed analysis of what are the potential risks in each of these activities, so that you will be able to come out with a plan for managing each of them, how to respond to each one. Now, these are distant locations, but when you are within the same geographical area, then to manage risk, you may look at the maximum flow problem. You can look at the minimal distance problem. The whole idea is that I want to see how, if I have this and I have 4 locations or 5, I am supposed to send goods to all this. We also have the shortest route. Shortest route problem. Now I want to get to E. In the shortest route problem, there is no consequence, or the only consequence that I will incur is additional cost if I use a longer route. However, wherever I pass to get to the destination, so this is destination, but in these models it is called the sink. That is where the whole thing comes into, and this is the source, otherwise called the origin. So I am originating from A and I have to get to E. I can decide to go through B to E. I can decide to go through C to E. I can decide to go through D to E. So, like in the case of Abuabo, Atonsu, Tafo, Dabain that I told you, you have the potential of going through several routes to Tafo from Abuabo. You can go through Bokrom Estate. You can come through Krofum. You can even go through Ejiso. From Ejiso to Bonwe, down through Antwa, all the way. Meanwhile, each of these routes has its own distance. Some are very, very long. If you have to go to Ejiso before you go to Bonwe, before you come to Antwa, before you come to Abrim, before you come to Kenyase, before you come to Bokrom, no. That is a very long route. And anybody who will take that route will be doing so just because they don't have any alternative. So the question is, which of these will help you? So in the shortest route problem, what we will do then is to find out which of these so I'm going to draw it here very well. So I have A, I have B, I have C, I have D, and our aim is to get to E. So assuming this distance is 10, 15, 20, this is 10, this is 5, no, this is 13, this is 8, this is 7, and this is 10. Now think about it. If I decide to go to from A to B, this is 10, this is 15, and this is 20. That is a movement from the origin to the first stops. Now, by the time I get to E through B, I will have had 23. When I come through C, I will have 22. When I come through D, I will have 30. Which one is the shortest route? That is ACE. So, what you will do at all times is to find out what is the distance, and then adjoining. Let's say from B to C, assuming from B to C was 2. Now, think about it. If we were to go through A, B, C, E, we will get 10. This will be 12. This will be 19. In that case, even though A, B, C, and E will look longer, it gives us a shorter overall distance than if we were to go through ABE or ACE or ADE. So look at it. From A to B is 10. From B to C is 2. That will give us 12. And C to E is 7, which is 19. In that case, this will not be the best. This will be the best. All this, remember that the longer the distance you cover, the bigger your risk. Because distance in itself brings risk. Because there's likely to be fatigue. The chance of more obstacles being on the path is higher, and so on and so on. So if you can go through the shortest distance, you should never go through the longest distance. I hope this is clear. So first, you start off by looking at how much distance are you going to cover as you go through each of these. This one, they are models, but we are not looking at the models. We are looking at how we can use these models to minimize our risk. We are treating this as a risk mitigation or management strategy. So I have routes to cover. I just use basic computation coming from the network, one of the network flow models, which is the shortest route model. I just want to see what it is that I can do. Which route can I follow to make sure that I give. Sometimes a route may be very short, but it is rough, very bad. You are better off going through a long distance that is smooth. All that will come into your decision. So sometimes the shortest route may not be the best. The minimal distance route problem may be the best. Because don't forget that for us who are managing risk, the distance you cover alone is not what we will look at. We are going to go beyond the distance you will cover to look at several other factors. Nature of the road, safety of the road. Some roads are short, but they are very quiet. The chance of people being able to attack you on that route is high. So you have to take all that into consideration when you are thinking of using route alternatives as a risk management and mitigation strategy. It is important for you to take note of that. Now, when we come to the minimal distance problem, we want to cover the distance that brings us the smallest headache. So it follows the same shortest route principle, except that with that one, our preoccupation is not just in the shortest distance. We want the minimal distance. So we are going to introduce other factors. So let's say I have AC, I can go through D. From D, I can go through C before I go to E. I look at what are the other factors. So I look at political factors, social factors, environmental factors, economic factors. Economic factors will involve the distance in terms of fuel, fatigue, cost per unit of the product you are moving through that distance. Social factors can be effect on the driver's psyche, and then the effect on the communities that you will pass through. Some of them, they haven't even seen any hotel before. As you pass through that, you raise dust, and then you jeopardize the health condition of the people. Then we come to political factors. Maybe this is a product that you are carrying on a truck that has political colors, or that you have to cross jurisdictions. You must take care of all the political issues that may come up. Rules and regulations vary as you cross geographical boundaries. If it is within the same country, then your worry is the political parties that are in power and in opposition. Fortunately for us in Ghana, we don't see these things. I have never seen people attack a truck just because it is carrying NDC paraphernalia or it is carrying NPP paraphernalia. Of course, when we are doing the politics proper, we sometimes fight. But I don't see people attacking trucks and taking away the things just because it is another party's car. But you know, elsewhere, trucks are stopped and bent down just because they are carrying the paraphernalia of another political party, and it is passing through the strong hold of another one. So all this will come in, and we will have the minimal distance problem. Remember that we also want to know the maximum flow. This maximum flow problem requires that you hold certain things constant. So I am going to create a chart and assume that we can go through everything. This is the distance we have to cover. In this charts, when you are looking at routes, there are some that are two-way. So you will see that the arrows will have no directions. This axis, these are nodes. This axis or arrows will have no arrowheads. If I do it like this, it means this is a directional network. But if there are no axes, it means it can be two-way. So let's say that this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We want to see the maximum we can do. So the basic underlying principle is that for any path that is from beginning to the end, you can only supply according to the lowest capacity on the path. So let's take for granted that this path has the capacity to transport 10. This path can take 5. This path can take 8. Maybe as a result of the facilities or the equipment or something that is there, this path can take 4, this path can take 8, this can take 6, 7, 12, 8, 9. So let's say after you have reduced everything you have to do into a map, this is what you saw. You can move these products, but what you want to do is that you want to make sure that when you dispatch, you get the maximum that the supply chain can carry. So, step 1 will require us to move through the various charts from beginning to end. So we can move from A to B to F and to G. What is the maximum we can move there? 5. Remember, we have 5 because we are saying that no NB. The underlying principle is that we can move the minimum capacity on the path. We have moved minimum capacity on the path. So we are going to look at how we can go from beginning to the end. So we say that if we were to move from A to B to F to G, we are going to, so this is route 1. Now, is there any other route? Route 2. We can go through A, C, E, F. Direct. A, C, E, E, G. How much can we move there? 8. Are you following? So, on this path, we can move 8. Now, we are now going to begin to start considering, after we have moved, are there any paths through which we can move? Remember, there's transshipment. This one is transportation, where we start from beginning and we go to the end. So, we are now going to look at all the other routes to see if there is any one that can allow us to add any capacity. Here, we are going to make use of excess capacity. How do you identify excess capacity? Excess capacity is any route or any path whose total capacity has not been exhausted. For example, here we are moving 5. So we will move 5 from here. Come and move this 5. Move 5 from here. I don't know if you can see. So we are moving 5, 5, 5, 5. Can you see any excess capacity? Here we have excess capacity. Excess capacity of what? 10 minus 5, and that is 5. Is there any excess capacity here? No. So here, no excess capacity. No excess capacity. Because 5 minus 5 is equal to 0. Here, is there excess capacity? Yes. Excess capacity here is what? 8 minus 5, and that is 3. That means we have left too much capacity hanging. On this path alone, we have 10, 5 here. No, we have 8, 5 here, 3 there. Now, let's come to this. We have moved 8. Remember, we are moving 8. The lowest is 8. So, we are moving 8, 8, 8. Is there excess capacity? Yes. This excess capacity is what? Excess 9 minus 8 is equal to 1. This one, 8 minus 8 is equal to 0. 12 minus 8 is equal to 4. So, it means that on this path also, we have 5 excess capacity. So, now let's see, are there any routes that we can pass to make use of? Remember, the reason why we have limited ourselves to these 2 paths for the beginning is that they are the ones emanating from the origin or from the source. So this is the source and this is the sink. They all flow into it. So now let's see. Can we increase? It means that the highest we can get per what we have done is 8. But is there any way we can maximize the flow so that we reduce our risk? Here, don't forget that if we have to do more to be able to reach all this, then we are going to incur a lot of risk. So now we can say that we can have for AB going through F is closed. But we can go through A, B, C, D, G. A, B, C, D, G. Let's see. The minimum there is what? Oh, let me say this is 3. So the minimum on that path is 3. That means if we have to go through this, we can add 3. See, can we get 3 here? Yes. We can move 3 more. How much excess capacity will be left? Excess will now be 5 minus 3, which is 2. So we still have 2 left. Now we come and move 3 here. We will have how much excess capacity? Excess capacity will be 4 minus 3, and that is equal to 1. So we have excess capacity of 1. Here, there will be no excess capacity because we have moved all the 3. Here, we move 3. And we have excess capacity of what? 4. But look at it. These paths from D to G and E to G, though we still have excess capacity there, the path through which we can go is exhausted. Can you see? It's exhausted. But look at D. We can have, so now here we can have plus 3 if we go through this path. So that now we have moved 8 from here. We have moved 8 from here. We have moved all the 5 from here. We have moved all 5 from here. Now let's look at A, B, D, F, and G. A, B, D, F, and G. Is that a path through which we can move additional stuff? And the answer is no. Because look at it. From A to B, we have 2 left. From B to D is 8. D to F is 6. And F to G is 3 left. So we cannot move this 6. So that is excess capacity that is not needed. If you have to reduce risk and you want to be efficient and you want to eliminate, these are candidates for elimination because they exist and yet they cannot contribute to the volume of flow. Because don't forget that even if we didn't go through A, B, C and we decided to go through A, B, D, E, this is 6. What is left here is 5. That will be okay. But what is left here is 3. It cannot satisfy the 6. Therefore, the maximum we can move through this, so maximum flow will be equal to 11. Because there is no other path that can make use of. So let's see A, B, D, G. A, B, D, G. What is left here is 4. This is 8. but this is 2. So, if we have to even go by the 5, yes, I think that will give us a higher flow. Let me write it here. Look at A, B, D, G. After the initial 2, this place is left with 5. This is 8. This is 7. So if we were to move the 5 rather than moving the 3 through this path, then we can get all the 5 here to be used. We can use 5 here out of the 8, and we can use 5 here out of. And so we could have added 5 through this path. I don't know if you see it. You know, we decided to do A, B, C, D, G. And the smallest there was 5. Was 3, meaning that we could move only 3 more. However, if we didn't go through A, B, C, and we went through A, B, D, G, then you will find that 5 excess capacity of 5, let me clean it so that you will see what I'm saying. You know that when we move the initial 5, excess capacity was 5. It was left with 5. Now we are not going through this again. We are not going through this. So let me just make them ordinary lines. Ideally, I should have been drawing new ones, but the board is small. So let's take this 3 off and say that we saw that if we went through A, B, C, D, G, we could add 3. A, D, B, F, G was not possible. Now we are testing A, B, D, G. Look at A, B, D, G. And you'll find that the lowest on that path is what? 5. Because remember, we have already exhausted 5. So the excess capacity here is 5. This is 8. This is 7. That means that if we move the 5, we will now have 5 minus 5, and this will be equal to 0. So we have used all the capacity on the A to B path. Now we come and use 5 here. We come and move 5 here. So this will be left with excess of 3, and this will be excess of 2. It is better than the A, B, C, D, G. That means our maximum flow will be the 8 which we will move plus 5 that we can get through A, B, D, G. And that will give us a maximum flow of 13. Well, like I said earlier, these are models on their own, and they are actuarial models, except that we just introduce the logic of it into our own management of risk. And don't forget that we are looking for alternatives through which we can reduce the amount of risk that we face. When you have a whole supply chain network, you want to maximize that supply chain. In fact, optimize it. That is to make sure that you utilize the supply chain as much as possible. And so when you are moving the products through the supply chain, you know that maybe going through A, B, C, D, G will give me only additional 3. But if I was to go through A, B, D, G, I will get additional 5. You are better off going through the one that will give you 5 than the one that will give you 3. So the whole idea is to do this. Remember, you start off with the automatic routes, because whatever be the case, you are going to start from the source region. And the source region leads to A, to B, and to C. So you are going to look at the path from the source region to the end. So we have A, B, F, G, and A, C, E, G as starts. Before now, we look at the connections, the interconnections. So we can now do A, B, C, D, G. Or we can do A, B, D, F, G. Or we can do A, B, C, E, G. If we were to do A, B, C, E, G, you see that the minimum is 5. That means we could have moved only 4. The minimum is 4. So we could have moved only 4. Meanwhile, if we go through A, B, D, G, we will move 5. So if you are looking for a maximum, then going through A, B, D, G is the best. Is the best. So just draw something on your own and try to find out which of the routes will bring you the most return. I can give you one example for you to try. And then if you are trying it, you can let me know what challenges you have faced. Remember, I have already given you an assignment. So let me draw a chart for that assignment. So let's say this is A, and we can get the paint. Use this chart for this network. Use this network for the paint assignment. This assignment will be submitted online, or better still, I can put it together in a very nice question, and then all of you will do it and upload it on the V-class. So there will be 2. And then, but I want you to give this a try. I have reduced the complications. So this is 8, 10, 12. This is 9, 5, 7, 6. This is 14, 8, 10. So determine 1, the maximum flow that can be achieved. The shortest route. So this then leads us to the units, creating resilient supply chains. You will see that from everything we have discussed, you can tell that there is the evidence that the tendency of many companies seeking low-cost solution because of pressure on margin is high. Because all these things you'll be doing it because you want to eventually reduce costs. But we have also seen that all these attempts to reduce costs will also make your supply chain vulnerable. A supply chain is vulnerable if it has a lot of points of failure. That's one of the simplest definitions you can have it. You can give it. So we say that the level of turbulence and volatility in the business environment today makes disruption too simple. Look at Ghana. You are not even sure whether light is stable or not. When you place an order, you are not even sure that the order will arrive at the promised date. So sometimes you find many of us being surprised that the company that delivered your product has kept to its word. Because you also know the challenges with the transportation system. So all this make risk high. Meanwhile, in the past, the principal objective of the supply chain was just to optimize cost and then give up the best service or to optimize service. But emphasis have shifted from there. You are not just looking for cost optimization. You are not just looking for service optimization. You are looking for resilience. So, a resilient supply chain cannot be the one or may not be the one that is the lowest cost. You remember I was telling you that when you find the shortest route problem, you are going to get the minimal route problem, where we are looking for the route with the minimal challenges, not necessarily the shortest or not necessarily the route with the lowest cost, because beyond just the direct cost, several other factors come into play. So all we are saying is that when you find that your supply chain is capable of coping with uncertainty in the business environment, then you can be sure you are nearing resilience. So what then is resilience? And we are referring to the ability of the supply chain to cope with unexpected disturbance or disturbances. And these disturbances can take several forms. How do you know that a supply chain has been able to cope with disturbance? After it has been changed or fine-tuned, it has stepped out of its normal to deal with a particular issue, it has to be able to return to normal. So, after that, we don't expect those disturbances to occur again. So, when you have a product packaged in a particular way, and almost every truck that carries it gets an accident, it is only fair that you sit down and look at what is causing it. Because the more accidents you get, the more difficult it will be for the supply chain to return to its normal state. It will be very difficult. What is the purpose of a resilient strategy? It is generally to cover the desired values of the state of the system that has been disturbed. The coronavirus has disturbed a lot of supply chains. For others, it has created too high a demand. And for others, it has reduced demand significantly. For others, it has even shut down demand. Thus bringing the supply chain to a total halt. But because people must continue to exist, because people must continue to live, no matter what, the supply chain will find a way of functioning. So now you see that many people are staying at home, but they are ordering things online. So banking has to be very up and functional. Telecom companies have to be up and doing. This is not the time where light off should be entertained. Because people are at home, and in Ghana, heat can kill people. In elsewhere where you have winter, you also know if light should go off, people will die of cold. So all these are disturbances to the system, and we expect that when all these things normalize, the supply chain should come back within an acceptable time frame. It shouldn't take them too long to go back to normal. If it takes them too long to come back to normal, it means they were not resilient. And we are saying that the cost associated with doing that should be acceptable. Effectiveness of the disturbance can be also managed by changing the level of effectiveness of the potential threat. So, given what has happened, I know organizations are going to start putting in place certain measures to ensure that should this happen next time around, the effect will not be as big as it is today. That is why in one of the lessons I told you that the supply chain and the world will never be the same again. It will take us time to really go back to what we were. Now, if you are designing a resilient supply chain, there are things there's a protocol you have to follow. We call them the principles of designing a resilient supply chain. And the first of them is start with the organization. The religious books say, remove what is in your eye before you attempt to remove what is in another person's. So start within the organization. See what are the points of weakness, the weak links within the organization, and try to fine-tune them and bring them up to speed with the level of efficiency desired. When you have that, then you take a strategic view. So now I have been able to deal with the issues I am faced with. Where do I want to be? Say 5 years from today, 10 years from today. Then you understand the concept of risk. Because we are discussing this in the context of the supply chain. So you must understand the concept of risk in the supply chain. What constitutes risk and how did they come about? What form do they take? Then you consider a risk design, or you consider risk in the design of your strategy. So whatever strategy you are putting in place, you must consider risk in that. Remember that you should keep at the back of your mind at all times. The chain or the supply chain is as strong as the weakest link in it. Because when you have different actors in the supply chain, not everybody will have equal strength. But don't forget that you are all going to be operating on the strength of the weakest link. That is why in these maximum flow models, you realize that when we are looking at how much can be transported through a path, we take the smallest. So if this is 8, 10, 12, and we are thinking of how much to flow through the path A, B, G, and H, it is 8. Because that is the weakest link. That is the link with the lowest capacity. Assuming you wanted to move this 12, can this carry the 12? No, it can't. So there will be a bottleneck there. That is the rationale behind using the smallest. Then you look for collaboration. Is it possible that the 12 here can be achieved by moving 3 from here? There's no link there. But assuming it is possible to create a link, is it possible that 3 can be moved from, or 4 can be moved from here? If that is the case, then this 9 has to be moved first. That will complicate your problems. So why don't you just stick to the weakest link? And then get perhaps an external organization to bring you the 4 you need. But even if you got the 4 at this point, this path can only take 10. What will you do with the extra 2? How will you move it? That will be additional costs and additional risk. Always remember that prevention is better than cure. Create agility. Remember, we discussed or we mentioned that agility is the level of flexibility you create in your supply chain to be able to deal with unexpected disruptions, unexpected events. Then you should have emergency procedures. How do you deal with emergency? Now, the Ghana has not declared a state of emergency. Some countries have. But should Ghana declare a state of emergency, how will we deal with it? What can we do? Now, when you say that you have been able to deal with all this and therefore your supply chain is resilient, we have to look at the physical features to tell. It's like somebody telling you, I am rich. There are some physical features around the person that you should just show. So sometimes I find it amazing that somebody is able to deceive somebody into thinking they are rich until they get them into a ditch. At least you should look at the physical features. A rich person cannot always be by the roadside looking for a trotro or a taxi or a pragia. A rich person cannot always be hungry looking for money. So you are a lady. This guy comes with nice coat, nice shirt, pretending that he has goods on the high seas and what he's a burger and all that. And then every now and then you have to buy food for him. No. You have to be careful. Open your eyes. So what are some of the physical features that you should see in a resilient supply chain? First, the design is such that it can match the demand. So the capacity and whatever facility design we are coming out with, we are doing so with the intention that it can match our demand. You may see parallel paths. You know, we can get to G to H through A, B, G, and we get to H. We can also go through A, C, F, and H. If that doesn't also work, we can go through D and E. Parallel paths. So it makes us a little more resilient because that means we can deal with shocks. Assuming something blocks this route, this and this are there. If something blocks this route, this is there. Assuming on the way something happens at B, we can pass through F. Or something happens at G, we can pass through F. When you see such parallel paths, then it tells you that the supply chain is also resilient. Then you also see shorter supply chains. We are not an organization that almost every person we are dealing with coming from a very long distance. Because I just told you a little earlier that the longer the distance you have to cover, the higher the risk you face. Then the shape of the supply chain is said that it is clear and it is known. The design is known. Everywhere, everybody is known. What distance they have to cover is known. Then you look at stocks. It is unfortunate that resilient supply chains tend to keep higher stocks at the various stages, just so it can always satisfy the customer. Check for spare capacity. In fact, when you see higher stocks, it is an indication that the supply chain is not very resilient. Take a minute to think about it. Because the supply chain is not too efficient, this supply chain will want to keep plenty stocks dotted everywhere so that should one arm become a challenge, the others can fit it, or the others can satisfy the requirement of the chain. Now look for spare capacity. You know that when you have spare capacity in place, it means your ability to deal with unforeseen contingencies, especially in terms of demand, is higher. But the spare capacity is also cost. Assess the level of agility and look at the downstream decoupling points. How are they able to ensure that there are smooth transfers at the downstream? When you check that, the takeover points, you are able to tell whether this supply chain is resilient or not. What are the strategies for building resilience? Top of the list is collaboration. Remember, even if you were Samson, you cannot do it all. Some people will have to help you do. You have to have confidence in your partners. There should be transparency. Visibility should be clear. Almost everything that is being done within the supply chain should be visible to almost everybody. Processes must converge. We cannot be doing radically different things and expect that we will converge at some point. No. Our processes should be similar so that in some way I am able to guarantee that because you are doing your things the way I'm doing mine, or partially the way I'm doing mine, at least our outcomes can be comparable. Velocity is high. You can chase high velocity, quick, easy movement and quick movement. Then you can build supply relationship and manage it. So you have a few suppliers who are up and doing, and you can work with them and you can trust them. You can rely on them. You keep supply chain, you select supply chain strategies that keep several options open. Don't go for strategies that locks your hands, forces you to deal with certain particular suppliers or certain particular customers. Because when you do that, then at some point you become subservient to these suppliers or to these customers. And then at all times, always look at efficiency and redundancy. That trade-off is key. A time comes when demand goes so low that a number of your equipment and staff become redundant. It's like they have nothing to do. You can manage this with shifts, where not everybody comes to work at the same time. You reduce the work schedule of everybody so that you are able to keep everybody. Or you lay off some. You introduce redundancy and lay off some. When the business is back up, you can employ them back. Thank you very much. As I've always said, if you have any issues, please contact e-learning at elearning@knyc.edu.gh or elearningknyc@gmail.com. Thank you very much.